Welcome to Open Source Career Day's closing session. This is our Hiring Manager Insights. We are offering a panel of hiring managers and me, your moderator, talking about how to help you get hired. First, I'd like to thank Scale and Open Source and Raise Me for hosting Open Source Career Day here. This is our I think this is our second Open Source Career Day with Raise Me. Super successful the first year back in 2020, and of course we all were cast adrift, and now we get to be back together in the same room. This actually feels really great. I've done a lot of online talks in Discord to tens of people at multiple events from my jammies at home, and this is way better. I can tell you firsthand. I hope you're all experiencing the same joy. This was today's schedule. This is the final talk here. So I'd like to introduce you to our panelists today. I'm going to say their names and then we'll let them introduce themselves. So we have Matt McDaniel, who is the Principal Technical Program Manager at Okta, and Derek Moreno, the Network Operations Center Manager, or NOC Manager, for O'Neill Digital Systems. Matt, would you like to take some time to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, thanks for the intro. I'm happy and excited to be here and provide some career advice. So,
are you on?
I am on. Can you guys hear me? You gotta talk closer.
There you go. Yes, please.
Okay. So I am a Principal Technical Program Manager. That is an individual contributor role that I went into specifically to help solve a really large problem at Okta. Before that, I was a manager for about 3 years. I hired 5 people, technical program managers, and I scanned thousands of resumes. I've done almost 100 interviews to date, and I know a thing or two about the process. Applying, getting through the interview, making an impact. There's a lot of different avenues I can go down, so I definitely invite you in Q&A to ask me any of those tangibles. And I'm here to kind of give some career advice and help you guys level up and land the job and talk to the right people. So yeah, it's a little bit about me. Here's Derek.
Derek Moreno. Been a NOC manager for a while. I've led teams from 3 to 30. At one point in my career, I was interviewing 3 to 4 people a month to replace people getting poached off my team by other parts of the company. So I've been through a lot of interviews, seen a lot of resumes, and hope to give you all some hope and some value.
Been through a lot of interviews. I've seen a lot of resumes. I think if that's not the motto for being on a hiring manager panel, I don't know what is. So we're going to jump right into the first question here. I want to thank ChatGPT for being the oracle and suggesting such amazing questions for this session. We only did a deep dive together and carefully crafted these questions. If we manage to miss any nuance along the way, we will be asking you to share your questions with us, and we'll be happy to get those too. So the first question I'd like to offer to, I don't have my lineup. The first question I'm going to offer to Matt, what are the essential skills and experiences you look for in a candidate when hiring for a tech role?
All right, this is going to sound super simple and super basic, but I want to see that you've done this in some way, shape, or form. So, do you have experience adjacent or directly doing the thing that the job description is asking you to do, right? It sounds really basic, but that is exactly what we're looking for. I don't know if it's been mentioned here, but the average time a recruiter or hiring manager spends looking at your resume is 6 seconds. In those 6 seconds, are you able to call out that you have done the thing that the role is asking for in some way, shape, or form, or you're ready to perform that? So I look for that. The other thing a little bit more specific is if you're going on for an infrastructure role, have you taken AWS training? Can you call it out on your resume, right? GCP, Azure, right? Have you done any DevOps courses? Have you taken any Agile classes? Like, put out some things that you've done that can be helpful and impactful to your role. That's something that I look for. And the last thing I'll add, and I'll hand it over to Derek here, is I want to know that you're committed to this career path. I've gotten a lot of resumes that it's okay that there's different experience, like maybe they were in QA, and then they were a developer, and then maybe they were a project manager, and then now they're applying for a software engineer, and I can't see that career story. I don't know if you're going to leave and do something else in another 2 years. So you want to have a story that says that, like, this is my career path and this is the way I'm going, so that I know that if I invest in you, you're not going to leave me in a year or two. So, yeah.
Yeah, just to make sure I'm looking to make sure that you can do the role, you can do the job. But the thing that Matt said that stood out to me is technically adjacent. You know, just talking to someone outside, not a lot of technical experience, but they've been running their own Linux server at home. So no professional experience, but they can tell the story about sysadmin, updating packages, updating an OS. They can do all of it. So don't just think about what you've done professionally. Think about what you've done personally. You know, and as Matt said, anything you've done to take training, pursue interest on your own, that always helps. Just show me personally that you're technically curious and able to go out and find the answer, so I don't have to hold your hand. Don't make me dig for why I want to hire you. Don't make me dig for why I want to hire you. Have accomplishments, have technical skills right up front. Don't make me dig. Have your accomplishments, have your experience right at the top, and have a story behind it. Have a why, have a how, have something that you can talk about. You know, because if I see that, if you're the, you know, 5th person with Linux Plus I've seen today, what makes you different? What have you done? Have you built your own home server on a Raspberry Pi using Linux at home, so you could stream media? That's interesting to me. You know, and it's also technically adjacent, technically relevant. Tell me why, you know, right up front, tell me what makes you special. What makes me want to hire you?
So I just want to piggyback on that a little bit, and I'll jump to my thoughts here. The common mind shift that needs to happen is when you're interviewing, you think you have to sell yourself, but you're really selling why you for that role and company, right? So help us connect the dots on why you would be a good fit at that company, and by doing those things that you listed right there. The other thing I'm going to say is a little bit off the beaten path. All is fair in love and war, in interviewing and getting a job. So how do you stand out? Make yourself stand out by going and doing it. So what I mean by that is we have a network called LinkedIn out there. I'm sure you're all on it. If you see a company, let's just say Splunk, for example, is hiring a role that you want to apply for, type engineer Splunk, find a list of LinkedIn profiles, and then make an introduction. Ask them how they like working at that company. What do they do there, right? Make a genuine contact, and then, you know, get some feedback from them and say, you know what, like what you've told me sounds great. Could I possibly request a referral from you? And 9 times out of 10, they're just going to give you a referral. Let me talk about why a referral is important. As a hiring manager, the last role I hired for got 597 applications, okay? I've got a team to manage of 10. I've got processes I've got to manage. I've got to report to executives. I got my own personal projects. I do not have all day to go through 597 resumes. But you know what I do have time for? The referral pile. There's 12 resumes in the referral pile. I spent more than 6 seconds on every single one of them. So think about that from a strategy standpoint. Make yourself stand out to the hiring managers and recruiters. Work your network a little bit and get that referral so you can get to the top of the list. And then there's also some strategies that were discussed today about improving your resume, making it match the role. If you have that and you get a referral, you're going to get a call back. It just takes time and persistence, but you will get there. So that's what I would recommend there. That's more on the qualitative side. Yeah, I think that's what I would say there. And I can answer more questions about that afterwards.
Yeah, well, we have some time, actually, if people have questions right now.
All right, and I'll repeat the question. Go ahead. Yeah, so the question was, when I'm interviewing a candidate and I ask them if they have any further questions, what do I expect, right? Yeah. So to make it really simple, I want to know that you're interested. So you can ask anything that demonstrates your interest on why you want to work here, why you want to work on the technical challenge, why you want to work with me, right? Or any clarification questions about the company, the way it's set up. Maybe you have questions about what we code in, our code base. Be interested, be genuine, and that motivates me to want to work with you.
Don't forget that second question so you can answer the first one first.
So the first question was around the job description. They kind of throw the kitchen sink at you. So how do you feel about, the candidates reaching out to you directly and asking what is it that you really need for this specific role? I don't mind it at all. In fact, I'm excited when somebody reaches out to me because it really doesn't happen that often, and you're going to stand out, right? Of course, you got to find out who the hiring manager is, so that's a different challenge, right? I'm sorry? OSEC? Oh, gotcha, OSEC, yes. Yes, yeah, you can do that. I like to say you're 2 LinkedIn connections away from that hiring manager or the recruiter, because you just have to get someone in that company to point you in the right direction, right? Let me say something about the job descriptions, okay? The way the hiring process works is there's usually a recruiter that goes top of funnel. They partner with the hiring manager because the hiring manager does not have all the time in the day to filter through top of funnel. So the hiring manager puts their intentions onto the job description, and hopefully they've done a good job of that because that also helps them out too. So a recruiter is looking to match you to the job description that meets the hiring manager's criteria, right? And so there's a lot of things that end up on job descriptions. I think companies could probably do a little bit better job of writing job descriptions. But if you read through the qualitative sections, like the paragraphs that I always skim over about the company and what they're trying to achieve, right? And then the key tenets of the role, so probably like the first or second bullet line, those are where you want to focus. Chances are, towards the bottom of the document, those are the least important items, so that's where I would focus my attention. And so that was part 1.
Yeah.
Let me just pile on that for a second. I worked really hard with my recruiters and my HR people to make sure that the job description and the requirements weren't onerous. Yeah, I'm going to assume you know how to use Microsoft Word, so it's not on my job description. But to what Matt said, first 2 bullets, that's what the meat is. Forget all the rest. Even if you can't get to the hiring manager, make sure the first 2 bullets, the first 2 requirements, your resume matches that or your introduction matches that. That's what they're looking for. We tend to use the inverted pyramid lead. All the meat is at the top.
And let us know how we're doing on time, Bryna. So second
Oh,
part,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
no, we're fine.
Can you repeat that? Gotcha. So that's a little bit of a loaded question.
Are
It
you
depends
bleeding or hemorrhaging?
on the company,
Yeah.
right? Let me tell you about how long it takes to fill a role. On average, it's 2 to 3 months to fill a role, right? How long does the hiring manager of the company have? It depends on a lot of internal corporate factors. So sometimes it's a use it or lose it headcount, maybe by the fiscal year, maybe by the quarter, maybe by the internal HR policy that if you don't hire this back in 6 months, we're just going to close it. It just kind of depends. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Are you talking about after they interview you or after? Yeah. If you haven't heard back in, I would say 2 weeks and you can't get your calls returned, they've moved on. They just don't have the guts to tell you. Sorry. I've recently been there, so
As a career coach, I would advise you to never have a single thing that you're waiting on, that you always have backups in the hopper in case and when that other thing falls through. You've got a constant pipeline.
I would just add, keep going until you get a job offer, right? Even if they're promising a job offer, even if it looks good, you don't have it, so keep going, keep interviewing, keep applying.
In my current role, I have 3 pending job offers from other companies that I'm still waiting on. Even though I've taken another role, I'm still technically in the hopper for 3 other roles, and I've been in this job 6 weeks, so no. Yes, sir.
In your opinion, gentlemen, what is the most common mistake that applicants make on their resume to cause it to be rejected instantly?
The most common mistake applicants make on the resume to get it to have it rejected instantly is not matching their resume to the role.
And I would add, don't throw the kitchen sink at me either. Make it easy for me to understand why you're a good fit for this role. I've seen a lot of really great resumes that list every little thing that they've ever done in completely different fields and areas. And it's almost like I feel like now I have to put the story together for you. I'm just going to go to the next person. Sorry. Just being honest.
Next question's right here.
Cover letters. They make you stand out. You care. I personally don't care. I will read them, but I hardly get them. And even then, the one problem I find with cover letters is you can tell as a hiring manager, if you've done this for a little bit, that it was a generic cover letter that meets some kind of a paragraph description that is a catch-all for every company, and you copy and pasted the company name in, and you copy and pasted the recruiter's name, and that was it. And so I frankly haven't found them that valuable.
Rarely see them, never read them. The cover letter is for the recruiter, not for the hiring manager.
The goal is to get into the hiring pipeline. At that point, you're already in the hiring pipeline, so you don't need your resume or cover letter anymore. I just want to call out a resume is a marketing document, right? So you're marketing yourself so that you can get into the pipeline. So that's the main goal.
Ready to move on? This is awesome. What is your approach to evaluating a candidate's soft skills, such as communication and collaboration? We'd like to let's start with Derek.
I'm going to try to have a conversation with you in the interview or on the phone screen. And please be prepared for that. You know, be engaging. If I have to drag information out of you, I'm not going to hire you because I'm going to have to drag your status report out of you. I want to know that you can communicate. I want to know that you can string a thought together. I'm going to ask you some interesting questions. One of my favorites is, what's not on your resume? Oh, you know, that my time in prison isn't on my resume. What's not on your resume? You know, I want to know that you can communicate, because the question I'm really asking is, what's not on your resume that's relevant to the position or that I should know about? You know, I want to know that you can go through that thought process, which means you can communicate and you can collaborate. Or if we start a conversation and, you know, we have something in common, I don't want to talk for 5 minutes. I want you to be actively listening and contributing. That's the collaboration portion of it.
I have a lot to say about this.
Yes.
Mainly because I've done project management for a while, so I've worked with all kinds of people of all kinds of walks of life. So let me tell you what you don't do. Don't interrupt your interviewer. It's not going to get you anywhere, okay? I'm looking for intentionality. I'm looking that you have the ability to actively listen. I'm looking for you to ask clarifying questions. I'm looking for you to pause when I ask you a question and think thoughtfully about how you're going to answer it. In fact, I love it when someone says, "Can I take a minute to think about that?" And I let them have it, and I get a good answer. Do you state assumptions, right? So when you answer the question that they're asking you, say it's technical in nature, I'm going to assume you mean this, and this is how I would answer it. Or can you tell me like a little bit more about that problem? And like, let's say how many users are accessing the database? Like, stating that is showing me that you're being very intentional about your thought process, and I want to work with you if that's the case. What else? Bring some character, bring some energy, be interested. You know, it's one thing to have the technical chops, but I have to see you more than I see my family. So I kind of want to work with you, so make it easy to work with you, right? What else? Yeah, I think that's what I would add to that.
But did we have a question in the room?
It comes back. Yes, sir.
What does it mean when you say excellent verbal and written communication?
What does it mean when it says excellent written and verbal communication? It's what I'm looking for is that you can communicate to my management team or to your peers. That's excellent, and it is excellent because it's in short supply. Most people, here's where like a email cover letter might actually help you, in that you can show me you can string two thoughts together, or that if you have an idea in your head, you can communicate it verbally in the moment. That's excellent written and verbal communication skills to me.
Yeah, I would probably wouldn't add much to it. I would say it's a combination of everything I listed above, or before rather. Just make sure you're actively listening, ask for clarifications, be intentional, don't interrupt. Yeah, that's what I would say.
So I actually wanted to add something to that. So as a leader and a coach, excellent verbal and written communication means, can you share a thought with a multitude of people without having to provide a lot of additional clarity? Do you know how to be concise and to the point? Can you write documentation that's legible and easily grabbable by others? Yes. Well, so to your point, I have a hearing loss. I can barely hear what you're saying, and you have an accent. If you and I are going to work closely together, I need to know that you're going to create a psychologically safe space for me to be able to ask you to repeat yourself, or to ask you to create written documentation for things that are going to be required to be shared with a number of people, so that we can go back to that documentation and be sure that we understand what your intention is. Because commander's intent is really the thing that matters. If you have an intention, I need to be able to get that from you and share it with a lot of people. So you either need to create the space for people to be able to come to you and ask you questions, or you need to be really good at writing that down in really simple bulleted terms so that people can access it easily. Sweet.
So let me make sure I'm understanding. You want to know if I would consider it good communication if the interviewees or the candidates talking more than I am, or if it's 50-50 or back and forth. It's being able to understand the conversation. And I don't mean like literally understand what they're saying. It's understanding what the ebb and flow, give and take of that particular engagement is. There have been interviews, very successful interviews I've sat in, where I've said maybe 6 words. There have also been very successful interviews I've been in where I took up 60% of the time. You know, it just depends on the situation. Being situationally aware about that is the valid communication skill.
We had a couple of other
Yeah.
questions. Can I see those hands again? Oh, we'll go to the back of the room and then the front of the room here. Yep.
So how do you feel about candidates that have excellent communication skills but aren't as technically proficient, and candidates that are technically proficient but are, not so good with communication?
How do you determine whether a candidate is a good cultural fit for your organization? Thank you for providing an excellent segue. Who would like to address this first?
So there's a famous quote that I learned from somebody in this room. It's hire for character and train for skill. So the way I'm going to answer your question is I'm looking more first for the character. I have to work with you every day. I think learning the technical skills, let's say you're really good at Python, but not so much at Java. I know that if you have the right character traits, you're going to learn Java. It's not a big deal for me. So I don't know if that's a non-answer, but just have a good personable communication style. Address your communication to the style of the person you're talking to. Communicate concisely your thoughts, and make it easy for us to work with you. And I think that will address it.
And on my part, making sure that the candidate's a good cultural fit, that's what I interview for. If my recruiters and my HR's done their job, you're walking in the door, I already know you can do the job technically. I want to know if I want to hang out with you. I want to know if because I'm, like Matt said, I'm going to spend more time with you than with my family. One quick story about that. There was a series of events that led me to wear a full tux to work one day. Cummerbund, bow tie, everything. Completely forgetting that I had an interview that day. So I walked in the room and I said, I'm sorry for the way I'm dressed, but it's casual Friday. His response was, what's normal dress code? A suit of armor? Hired right there.
That's perfect. I love that story. We had a question up here at the front.
Yes. So, in a technical engineering role, what is more important to you personally? A person who can follow, or a person who is self-motivated, with the risk implied?
Both. Honestly, both. If I can, if you're granting wishes, give me somebody who can do both. Because what I want to be able to do is there are times when I need somebody who's going to be a good follower. Well, most of my team needs to be a good follower so that they can, we can all head in the same direction. But there are going to be times when I need a fire and forget missile. So if I would say, I'm going to give you this project or I'm going to give you this initiative, come back to me when it's done. I need both.
No. So I would say that, to quote, paraphrase Seth Godin, there are smart people and there are people who get things done, and they are very rarely the same person. Right? You know who you are. If you're smart, you're not necessarily getting the things done. You get the things done, but you're not necessarily thinking about the strategy, or you're that person, right? So it's always something in between. Does that answer your question? Great. Can you share any tips for candidates to make a positive impression during the interview process? And I want to be clear, this is the last question that we have in the deck, and we'll be rolling from the audience after this. So if you've got bon mots that you would like to offer, now's the time.
Make a positive impact. Please show up on time, actually early. I had a exceptionally qualified candidate that was late to 2 interviews in a row, and I turned him around in the parking lot and said, you're not working here. Positive impression. Be engaging, maybe make eye contact. If the hiring manager cracks a joke like it's casual Friday, feel free to come in with a quip. Show me that you want to work here. That's the most important. Matt alluded to it earlier. Show us that you've spent 15 minutes on Google finding out about the company. Something. if I ask you, do you have any questions about, about the company, about the culture, about anything, and you have nothing, my interest drops. There's no, if you can't be bothered to figure out what we do and how you fit in, how you add value, there's no point in me talking to you further.
I would just double down on being interested in the company. A lot of candidates I've interviewed, it's clear they didn't spend even 5 minutes looking at the company website. At least be able to name our products. Maybe a couple, if not all 20 or whatever. Talk about what excites you or interests you about working at this company, even if it's cultural, even if it's about benefits, even if it's about the type of work we do. Be interested. I want to work with people who are interested. So, yeah. And then he covered all the other points I was going to add there.
So we talked about questions. We talked briefly about questions after the interview. So I feel like this is one of the strongest sections that nobody really knows how to handle. I had no idea that this meant anything. I just thought it meant that I was smart, that I wasn't asking any questions, because I knew all the answers. Why would I ask you, right? But you have to be humble. You're walking into a new company, into a new place, in front of new people, and they've got all kinds of problems, and you only know about one. And you only know this much about the one, right? People hire because they have a problem that they need to solve. I will challenge all of you to ask this one question in your interview. When I solve the problem that you're hiring me to solve in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever you feel comfortable saying, what is your plan for me? I challenge you, because most of these employers don't have any idea. They haven't thought about it. They just have a problem. They need to solve it. You have a career. You own your career. Know what their plan is for you. If you are going to solve their problem legitimately in 30 days, say, you can pay me for 6 months of this work and I will solve your problem, and then we can talk about the next thing I can do for you. Because if they don't have a plan for you, don't sit around for 3 years waiting for them to come up with one. Own your career. Know what you can do. We were talking about consulting opportunities versus hiring opportunities. If you know what you're good at, and you're good at going into a company and solving their problem, and then you want to jellyfish away and go solve somebody else's problem the exact same way, think about consulting.
I'm going to give you 2 more questions you can pull from that pile. One of them is, if I am hired on this role and I successfully completed the thing you hired me for, what was it that I did most effectively that generated that success? That does a couple of things. It's a little bit of a psychological hack. One, you're getting them to imagine you already in the role.
Yes.
So maybe there's a bias to hire you now.
That's awesome.
And 2, they're already thinking you're going to succeed in the role because they have to imagine the situation. And 3, they're giving you clarity on the most important trait. So let's say you just finished talking to the recruiter. This is a call with the hiring manager. When you go to the panel and they tell you the number one thing you did was bring teams together and align on solving the same problem, you can talk about that to every single other person on that panel. And they already work there, and they're going to go, that's exactly what we need.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And you're going to get that in.
That's a sick tip. That's awesome.
Another one I'll add, and I'll come to your question right after this.
Yep. What was the question, and what would your answer be?
The question, I didn't give you my answer, but I gave you the, right. If you hired me in this role, and I was successful doing the thing that you asked me to do, and you can wordsmith this the way you want, what was the one thing that generated that success? Or the top thing? And they're basically spoon-feeding you the character traits, the skills, everything that you need to succeed in that role.
Love it.
All right, the second one is a little bit of a reverse Uno card. I believe interviewing, and it doesn't feel like that a lot of times, especially if you're really trying to find another job and you've been doing it for a couple months, is a two-way street. You want to make sure that you go work somewhere that you want to work at, and you see yourself working there for more than a few months, right? So there's a couple things I like to ask. The first one is to the hiring manager. What is your management style? This does something very important. The hiring manager gets thrown off guard. They're going to stumble on their words. They're going to say, and the managers who have their S together are going to tell you exactly what that is. The ones that don't or are still a little bit amateur at their role are going to start making up stuff on the spot, and you can smell it. So if working with a great manager is something that you're looking for, put them through that test.
My name is Derek, and my management style is benevolent dictator. It's not an accident that I have that locked and loaded. Just to emphasize that point. This is an opportunity for you to interview your manager. You know, I love it when candidates ask me, what do you love about the job? Which is a softball question. And then follow it up with, what do you hate about the job? Because I have to think. Okay, that shows me you're interested. That shows me that you care. That's what's important.
I just want to add a little comedic relief there. Last year, I interviewed at over a dozen different tech companies. I got 4 different offers, and I selected Okta. That's where I'm at right now. One company that I rejected in the process, the hiring manager went to great extents to highlight how they were not a micromanager. Instant micromanager, pass. Or at least a micromanager recovery or denial. So yeah, look out for those things.
That's awesome.
Any question?
I want to make sure that a developer or a lead or full-level manager or project manager, product owner, that I'm not going to get in a situation where we're stuck waiting for database people. We're stuck waiting to get a server stood up. I've been places that happened with the weeks, and the team had a big sprint. So they were done with their stuff and it just couldn't get out. Or they couldn't even get started for externalities. So I want to make sure that the Scrum teams are empowered, that they're not going to have externalities, that people answer their questions really quick. So I'm guessing that's what you want to ask the manager section.
So your question would be, how do you resolve dependencies, or what are you going for?
Those are the exact questions you should be asking.
There you go.
So that's open fair game to drill down, and if they're not doing Scrum, then will I be happy there?
The microphone.
If I want to get the features in the hands of users, is that what's my goal?
Yes, those are the exact questions you should be, and for everybody who wasn't able to hear, he's asking about, are the Scrum teams empowered? Will we be waiting for servers to get stood up? How many layers of, administration do I have to go through to, get my stuff out to the users? Those are the exact questions you should be asking. How long is the QA process going to take? That is exactly what you want to ask. And if they don't have an answer, maybe go interview somewhere else. Because this is like a marriage.
How important do you feel is college degree versus, working on a portfolio of active projects?
Oh, I got to answer. I have feelings. Hiring managers, please answer these questions.
Okay. 20 years ago, I would have said that a college degree was really important. I think there's still value to a college degree, but that's really not what a lot of companies are looking for. I kind of let off, I don't remember what question it was, but we want to know that you have done the thing that we're hiring you for, or you have technical adjacent experience, right? So if you self-studied a lot of the things you could learn in computer science school, I don't care that you didn't go to computer science school. I just want to see that you can do the thing.
Same. A college education at a certain degree was the last thing I looked at. There's a reason it's usually put at the bottom of a resume if you have a lot of experience, and at the top if you don't. If you don't have a lot of experience and this is an entry-level position for you, then a certification or a college degree is, important. You need to put it at the top so that you know how to apply yourself to a goal and achieve that goal. But if you have relevant experience, don't care.
So your GitHub page should be at the top of your resume.
What's that?
So your GitHub page should be at the top of your resume.
If you're going for a software development role, absolutely. Yes, sir.
I'm going to try to talk louder. How important is certifications to you? I'm asking because I know somebody who was a top Cisco engineer. He was working third-level support, but he didn't even have a CCNA.
How important are certifications? Depends on the role and depends specifically on what we're going to ask you to do. For your example, someone who is a CCIP equivalent working at Cisco third-tier support without a CCNA probably got enough on-the-job training, relevant experience, that the certification was irrelevant.
I'll add a little nuance there. So if you're junior in your career, you're fresh, you're trying to land this job in tech or whatever, lean on the certifications to prove that you're interested, you're treating this career seriously, and you took steps to learn these things. When you get senior and you've actually got on-the-job experience and training, they're very much less important. So.
Hi, my name is Ikenna, and I'm kind of an aspiring software engineer, still trying to figure out where to start, and a lot of the stuff I'm focusing on is kind of personal passion, and something that you touched upon earlier was everybody should kind of have an edge when it comes to the resume that kind of makes things stand out. And I was just curious if there was anybody who were listening to their personal interests, and you didn't think of it much at first when reading their resume, but during the interview, you had elaborated on it, and it was a bit exciting, and maybe that had, let's say that you had hired them, maybe that had caused a shift in the team culture, and it was something that was just really nice that you really hadn't expected. Is there anything like that, or a way to really demonstrate like the personal interest with something that a hiring manager can see?
I think to summarize, how do you take personal interests and make them, relevant to the business? Show me that you've had a problem, and if I'm hiring you to be a software engineer to solve a problem, show me how you've solved one of your own problems, how you've scratched your own itch. I was talking to somebody outside, got sick to death of iTunes, so they ended up setting up their own media server and getting their entire family on it in their own home. As a hiring manager, that's, my bells went off. I'm like, ding, 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 ding. This, has relevant experience, scratched their own itch, knows how to problem solve. That's what I'm looking for. Show me that you're interested, and I'm not going to have to, walk your hand through each line of code, or hold your hand through each line of code.
I'll add something less technical to answer your question. So whenever I do interviews, I spend the first 5 minutes on kind of icebreakers and introduction. So when I ask you to tell me about yourself, I'm hoping that you throw in a hobby, a personal interest, a passion. It humanizes you. It makes me relate to you. It makes me think of you as a person instead of just an applicant. And when somebody does list their hobby, I ask them to tell me about it. So right now, my personal hobby is pickleball. It's the fastest growing sport in the United States right now. It's on track to become an Olympic sport. I can tell you about all the types of serves, how I play every single Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I can tell you the best tactics for scoring points. But what I'm really telling you is this is something that's important to me. I spent the time to do the depth, the research, the practice, and I'm passionate about it, right? And so as a new grad, I would recommend, if you don't have a whole lot of technical experience, like setting up a server in your house or even a network attached storage or anything like that, make sure you list something that you're passionate about and that humanizes you, that you can talk to depth.
Freelancing as like a software engineer also be a good way to get experience, or you have something worried about that?
It's relevant experience. I personally am not scared of freelancers or contractors or whatever. Yeah, as long as the freelance work you didn't cause a catastrophic cascading failure and, cause the company to go under, yeah, put it on your resume.
I just thought of a relevant, I was actually thinking about this earlier, and it just occurred to me, and I wanted to share it. So there's the idea of freelancing. So as a worker, there are two really different kinds of freelancers. There is a contractor and there is a consultant, right? And it's really the mentality that makes the difference. The contractor will do the 10 things that you hire them to do. I'm hiring you, I'm going to give you a list of 10 things, and you're going to go through and you're going to work that. That's a contractor. The consultant I'm going to hire because I need to know a list of 10 things that need to get done in order to solve my problem, and I'm going to hire you to help me define what those 10 things are. Knowing which one you are and knowing which role you want in the moment is a huge differentiator for you. If you want to come in and do what they ask you to do, then you're going to come in with a contractor mentality and you say, I am going to get these tasks done for you. But if you're going to come into an organization and you're going to do an analysis and you're going to figure out where they are and where they need to be and what changes need to happen in order to get them to that state, that's a consultant, and it's a totally different role. And coming in and showing that you know what you're talking about, I understand your company, I understand your industry, I understand what the ask is. I understand what your company's shape looks like and who I'm going to have to interact with. Here is a plan for what I'm going to execute in order to solve your problem. Here's what I'm estimating it's going to cost, and these are my assumptions. Can you help me correct those assumptions? If you walk into an interview like that and you show that you've got mastery of this job that you're trying to get, hired on the spot, right?
Absolutely. And if it supports getting you technical experience or technical adjacent experience, it counts. It's good.
We talked earlier, your website exists and functions, it's good enough. Full stop.
Coachingwithbryna.com redirects to my Calendly. I know how to redirect a website. I get a job.
Yeah. There's a lot of free resources out there. One I use is called card.co, CARRD.co. It's like $9 a year. You just have to bring your own top-level domain, like your name.com, and they give you templates. Just click and go. I set mine up in 30 minutes, so you can do that. You don't have to go code it from scratch, but you're more than welcome to. You just want to get it out there.
We had a question over here before we go back to the back of the room.
So I'll talk to the project aspect because I am a program manager. So in your README at the top or wherever in your GitHub, tell me about the project, why you're doing the project, what's in scope for the project, what's not in scope, your assumptions, any qualifying criteria that demonstrated your thinking ability, which then informs how you coded the project, is really helpful for me.
Yeah, and there's the best kind of project is one that you're passionate about, regardless of what it is. Because if you're passionate about it, if you're scratching your own itch, if you're solving your own problem, then you're going to be able to speak eloquently and passionately about it. And that's what we're looking for. There's no, if you said, well, is, Python, Java, or, Rust the better language? I'm like, I don't care. Does it work? Does, whatever you're building, does it work? Does it actually function? If so, successful project.
Did it scale? What did you learn? Did it fail? What did you learn? If it was an unsuccessful project, I almost want to know about that more. Tell me about your unsuccessful project. Take your failure bow. I have failed.
Unless you wrote it in Mongo, then I'm
I just want to add, the more experience you have as you start, depending on where you're at in the journey, everybody's at a different stage here, but the more years in a technical role or engineering role you have, I expect you to have failed at something, maybe many times, and I want to hear that story. And it's actually really, really refreshing to hear a candidate admit they failed and then talk about how they fixed it and how they're improving moving forward. But do not tell a fail story if it's just a complete fail and nothing came out of it, right? But that adds to the depth of your character and your problem-solving ability, and it humanizes you as well.
So we had the back of the room and then right here.
All right, so 2 questions, right? Resume size, 1 page, 3 page, what's long that actually,
As long as it takes.
work is great. And then the other one was, do you feel the personal website enhances your resume or it doesn't really do much?
Okay, so the question was about a personal website, that was part 2, and then the length of the resume was part 1. I am super opinionated because I prefer the social engineering side of resumes, which is get it in front of the right people, get a referral, find the hiring manager, find the recruiter, reach out to them directly, and if you can make a good enough intro and connection, it almost doesn't even matter what the resume says as long as it has the main points. Personally, my own rule is I'd keep it to 1 page, and I have 12 years of experience. It took me weeks to get it down to 1 page. But I also, as a hiring manager, do not like fluff. So there's a lot of fluffy words in a lot of resumes. And by the way, you can use ChatGPT. Plug in your resume and say, condense this, summarize this, and it will reduce it by at least half. So there's another way you can kind of improve your length. But I don't want to be prescriptive about it. I think if it takes 2 pages for you to put all your data points in and highlighting everything that you need, that's great. Personally, an aspirational goal that you may consider is 1 page, because I can scan it really fast and I should be able to get the picture quickly because you only have 6 seconds to scan a resume.
So 12-size font?
Readable font and not crammed.
And for me, 1 page, 3 page doesn't matter. I'm looking for content. It helps if you put that content and the reason I should hire you on the first page. That'll help me get to the second and third page if that's relevant. But you know, don't be afraid of having a 3-page resume. The first person reading your resume isn't a person; it's a bot. So make sure your information's there. But yeah, for the actual human reading it, make sure that the relevant information is on the first page.
If you have accomplishments that you're particularly proud of, you have projects you've worked on, you've got community community things you've been involved in, you've got really cool things that you've done for businesses in the past, on your front page, you want, this is who I am and this is what I'm looking for. Here's maybe some skill and human bullets. I am good at wrangling cats. I am good at building good teams, right? And then here are my notable accomplishments. The first things that you would show off to the hiring manager when you got in a room, I need to tell you about this thing that I did. That should be right there. Whatever comes on the second page, that should be supporting documentation for that.
And I want to add the upper limit. So I'm going to expose a hiring manager bias that I have, and maybe other people will disagree with it, but I've interviewed 3 people with resumes that were 6 pages or more. I no longer interview them. Can you guess why? Their ability to communicate in the interview is not succinct. They don't have a structured way of communicating. They put, just word vomit on a resume and hope something sticks. And that turns out to be their communication style. So my bias is if it's really long, like I could get behind 1 page, 2 page, 3 page. You start getting to 4, it's a little gray for me. You get to 6, I'm not interviewing you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think I actually just thought about that. I think I have an internal bias to about 3 pages. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
The one about the personal website, like, do you feel that enhances your resume or it's not really important?
Well, if you have a portfolio, it definitely enhances your resume. If you don't have a portfolio and it's just kind of like an about me page, it's not really important. What I do think is really common and popular now is adding your LinkedIn profile if you don't even have a personal website. I think that's pretty key.
Make sure your LinkedIn profile actually matches the resume, the targeted resume that you're using to get the job, so that when they go to look at you, they're not seeing a whole different person out on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Personal website is great if you're a web developer, because you can kind of show off that's technically relevant experience. But in my case, I'm a IT technical manager or a people manager as well, and my personal resume is basically a blog and my Instagram photos.
So we have about 5 minutes left. We have a question here and a question here and one in the back. And one there. That's my 4. Can we do a lot?
Yes, you're
My personal bias, talk about personal biases,
You're about to.
is any job that's older than 10 years, unless it's relevant to the position, I don't care. You know, I don't put my first dishwashing job at TGI Fridays on my resume.
Even though that is a big selling point for your hiring you now.
As long as it's relevant, if you were writing code that's still in production or still in use, then that might be relevant, and if it's relevant to the role. But beyond 10, beyond really 10 years, I would say maybe you bring it up in the interview, but not on the resume.
I would say that your most recent experience should have the most information, and your least recent experience should have the least.
Like currently, my resume has my last two jobs are pretty full of it,
Yeah.
but then I kind of highlight what I did in the last.
If you can still talk to it. So one thing I do want to add here that wasn't mentioned is your resume is fair game for interview questions. In fact, that might be the source of many questions. So if you list something on your resume, be prepared to talk about it at length and not draw a blank or say it was too long ago, I didn't remember. Because now as a hiring manager, I'm like, why did you put it on there? I've had that happen.
Your resume is your agenda for your interview conversation. You are lining up all the things you want to talk about in the order you want to discuss them. And they should be all of the ways that you and your experience fit the role of the job description. The closer you keep to that, the easier that conversation is. And if you've got stories in your pocket that you can talk about when you actually get to that item that actually show your growth, your eagerness, your understanding, your expertise, and your collaboration and culture, then you got it going on. We had a question here in the front. Did you get your question answered? Where's my question? Question here?
So my question is, if you've been at a company or an organization for like 20 plus years, would that count against you or for you? If it's against you.
Gotcha. So
This longevity of role.
yeah, so the question is longevity of role. If you've been at a company for a long time, say 10 plus years. I was actually at a company for 7 years, and I actually had that same concern. What actually happens is when the recruiter or the hiring manager looks at your resume, they want to see that you've grown or advanced in some way, shape, or form. Maybe you got promoted. Maybe you transferred to a different department and worked on different kinds of things. Maybe you learned some new skills, right? So that'll really kind of show me that you haven't stagnated in the career, right? And if you haven't done any of those things, like how can you paint a compelling story on your resume with enough projects and experience and learnings that show that you have been in a growth mindset?
Did we have another question in the back that I missed? Yes.
I don't have a bias.
I don't really have a bias. It just makes you harder to surface. You know, like the reason people don't have a LinkedIn is because they don't think they need it. But if you're in this room, you probably need it. So get something out there. It just like shipping a project. Something's better than nothing. Yeah, at least don't. If you won't get that question in the interview, why don't you have a LinkedIn? Or if you don't have a LinkedIn for a good reason, then have a story and an answer ready.
I'll just throw out creativity and titles. Resume lists a number of elaborate wording that I try to make it flowery.
Sorry, in titles or in descriptions or what do you mean?
Roles, title, job description. So, employer and my title. I didn't want to say I did computer stuff.
What was your title?
Information System Security Manager, Information Assurance Director. Like I just think it's relevant. It's small.
So let me see if I understand. So like the company gave you a title, but it didn't feel like the title that you wanted to advertise yourself as on your resume. Like I know sometimes you get these corporate titles that are like 4-letter abbreviations of the things that you did, and you're like, I don't want to put that on my resume, but I was really a IT manager or whatever. Sure. You have to translate from military to, yeah, I feel you. Yeah, that's a thing. No, it's a real thing. So I'm gonna step in here, career coach. You want to describe what you do. What did you do in that role? Give it a title that everybody can understand. If they give you like a very specific title that feels nitpicky, you're not filling out an application. They're not going to send you to jail for using a different way to be able to describe what that role was when you if and when you have to fill out an application and identify exactly the title of that role that you did with that company to be able to do some sort of reference check or background check. That's when you give that information. That's when you give the months and the years that you worked there. Otherwise, you just give them the years. I was there from 2001 to 2010, and that's it. And then here's the title that most represents what it is that I was doing in that role so that you can understand and have a little bit more clarity on the role I was playing, right? Yeah, thank you very much. That's a great point. So you're talking about lying on your resume?
Yeah. Okay, so
Well,
I have some
intention.
yeah,
Go.
intention counts a lot, and I have some very strong feelings about this. Like Matt said, that's fair game on your interview. So if you say I was a security technology specialist, I know just enough to be dangerous. So I'm going to start asking you pointed questions, and if I smell that you're lying to me or you fluff things up, I'm going to ask you some really pointed questions. Because that's fun for me. Not fun for you. So just make sure that if you put the title on your resume, you feel confident in defending it.
Another thing you can do is just put your actual title and in parentheses put what it should have been.
There you go.
So technology specialist, parentheses, network engineer.
So we are officially 2 minutes over. Do we have additional questions, or can we thank our panelists? There's coachingwithbryna.com is my QR. This is how you reach Matt McDaniel. This is his QR code.
In my QR code, you can get a free referral to Okta.
I'll just leave that sit there for a minute. And in the meanwhile, I'd like to thank Unsplash for their lovely commercial-free photography that I used in this deck. I'd like to thank ChatGPT for helping us craft a nice starter deck of questions. I'd like to thank the audience for filling in the deck of questions with your own relevant and timely and helpful questions. I want to thank you all. And I'd like to thank Scale and Raise Me for the opportunity to be able to hold Open Source Career Day and to provide us this lovely room and this great opportunity to share all of our knowledge. And thank you.